Good evening and welcome back to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. We have Thom Cantrall back for part three. And Tom, we are picking up at a very interesting place in your journey. We call this one your teacher.
Right. And actually, this is the turning point in my career with him and 65 years of research. This is where the point where all the facts I had learned prior to this became not only truth, but became the crux of what they're all about. That's when I started learning, putting all these facts together. Prior to this time, I went along with what Dr. Grover Grant said. I just thought they were um, an undiscovered primate, some North American primate. I had no reason to think otherwise until 25th of September in 2010. And what had happened, I was getting cabin fever. Uh, I uh, I had been retired for a few years. I was forced to retire due to health reasons. I went to the doctor one day and he says, "You need to quit work and get these tests done." I said, "I don't want to quit work. I love what I'm doing." I was estimating engineer for an asphalt company, and I'd take a project. The prime contractor build a building. And I'd do everything else on the job. I had subcontractors, and I just loved it. I was having a great time. My boss just gave me free reign to do what I wanted because I took his $200,000 a year business and made it a $2 million a year business,
Wow.
and yeah, yeah. So he was quite happy with it.
Yeah, I would be happy too.
Yeah, but the doctor says, "Well, let me rephrase that. If you don't retire this month and get those tests, we will be burying you next month." He
Hmm.
got my attention, and so I did. I had to retire, but that didn't mean I had to stop doing things. That just, that was 2007. So how many years ago? 17 years ago, something like that. And 2010, I was I just had been in the house as long as I could handle it. I needed to get out, and I decided to go into the Blue Mountains in southeastern Washington. They were near where I lived, and spend some time. I'd take my overnight gear, and if I wanted to spend the night, I'd spend the night. If not, didn't have to. But my friend Arla in Oklahoma, my sis actually, and she's got a hold of me one day, and she says, "Sir, this place you're going," she says, "is there a big stack of wood on that road?" I said, "I don't know, to tell you the truth. I've not been on this road. I've been on the ridge top on both sides, but this road runs up the river bottom, up the Tushy River, and it's been closed. It was part of Boise Cascades Tree Farm. They put it to bed and then deeded the land over to the Umatilla tribe, Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. And the Indians had it closed while they rebuilt the road and everything. And they had just reopened it. And that's why I was going to go there because I hadn't been up the bottom of the river there yet. So that's what I did. And I just said to myself, I will just travel up that road until I see a big stack of wood. If there's none there, then there's none there. But if there's one there, that's where I'll set up. And what I did, what the way I always do, I just had my ice chest with my fried chicken hips and boiled eggs and Diet Pepsi in it. I had my Kindle and my folding chair, and I also had a little altar that I put up too, just for me. And I had a couple of eagle feathers that had been gifted me, and I hung those in the breeze and used actually what I used for to burn for incense was scent lure, and I used the blackberry scent this particular day just because it smelled so darn good. And as I drove up that little road, it was freshly graveled, but the gravel was like 2 inch minus. It was pretty pretty heavy rock, but it was easy to drive. You just had to take your time. Crossed one little creek just by fording it, and found that pile of wood. And it happened to be an area where there was a cutout when they were fixing the road. That was a turnaround for their trucks, and the cat had cut a big notch out of the bank there so that there was room to turn around. So I just pulled my car in there and got out my ice chest and my folding chair and parked my bottom in it and set up my little altar and just sat back. And on the way out that morning, I'd stopped at one of the orchards that I glean in, and the apples had been picked. There, it was late September, so the apples had been picked. And picked a box of apples, and there's a big grape vineyard there, about 2,000 acres of grapes, and they hadn't been picked, but I just took some from the ends. They machine picked them, and the ends around the posts there they can never pick. Can't get their machines in there, so I just went and picked a box of grapes from the very end of the rows, and went on up and I put those out so as a gift for them, and then sat down, opened my Kindle, started reading. I got there probably 9 o'clock in the morning, and there were four cars that came by. I had chosen the date, the 25th, just simply because on the 23rd, archery season's closed, and there was no big game season open till after the 1st of October because the elk were rutting, and they closed the season in Washington during the elk rut, during the height of the rut, and so I figured I'd be all alone up there. Well, I'd forgotten uh, fall turkey season, and nobody ever goes says I'm going fall turkey hunting now. No, but it's an excuse to put the shotgun on the gun rack and go drive the roads and spend a day in the woods. That's basically what it is. So I did see
Mhm.
four pickups come by that day, and nothing happened. It was quiet. It was just so quiet. And along about 2:30 in the afternoon, I'm having a great time sitting there reading by myself and munching on my fried chicken hips. That's thighs, by the way, for people that don't understand my language. But
I understand it.
uh, as I sat there, all of a sudden the voice came in my head, and this is my first experience at Mind Speak with him. I can't come out. There's been too many people today. I might be seen. Oh, thought about it. I said, "Did you just speak to me?" Yes. I can't come out. There's been too many people. I might be seen. Oh, well, this is a shame because, yes, it's Saturday, but, I'm retired. I could have been here Tuesday as well as Saturday. I mean, my week consists of 6 Saturdays and a Sunday now. And I says, would it be better if I left now and came back on another day? Yes, that probably would be better. And I said, well, I brought these gifts of food for you. Would you like me to leave those, or should I take them too? And he kind of, have you ever been laughed at by a 9 foot 3 inch Sasquatch?
I can't
Uh,
say I have, sir.
oh, it's an experience, let me tell you.
I've been
And he
laughed at by
says,
my husband.
yeah, I don't think he's 9 foot three. He's a large fella, but he's not 9 foot three. And he says, look in the water. And I walked over to the edge of the river and looked in, and it's just wall to wall salmon. You know, he says we have
Now
plenty of
listen.
food now. He says perhaps in the time of the snow. That sounds like a great idea. I'll bring it back then. I'll leave a few for you because I know you'll like them. So I packed everything up, folded my chair back up, put it in my car, put my ice chest back in the car, had my right foot in the car already, and was just starting to squat down under the wheel, and he stood up right in front of my car.
Wow.
just across the road from me. And this is, I mean, this is just a 10-foot wide cat track with gravel on it. So he was probably 12 to 15 feet from me. And like I say, he's 9 foot 3 inches tall. He's huge. Um, I could tell that because when he stood up, there's a little hawthorn tree, which I named Nathaniel. What else are you going to name a hawthorn, right? And and
Go ahead. Go ahead.
and sorry about that.
I just love you, Tom. Go ahead.
but his head just hit this branch, major branch, came out the side. So after he left, I was able to measure that. But he said, I wanted you to see me before you left. He says, I need to speak with you, but now is not the time. That's okay. I'll return. And so I did. He went back and then just disappeared back in the brush. But that was all mind speak. And that was the first time I'd ever had mind speak. So about a week and a half later, I came back and he'd been talking to me at home in that time. And he said, can you come tomorrow? I said, yes, I can come tomorrow. Drove out, got right to the gate where the Indian land started. And the voice said, stay here, stop here. So I stopped, I got out, and he and his daughter, Taranika, were up on the hill. I could see the both of them. And she's a redhead, red body, actually, it's red hair. And that she was probably 8 or 9 at the time. And yeah, about that. And we had a conversation. And one of the first things he said was, I know that you're having trouble reconciling what you're learning from us with your priesthoods. And I hold a priesthood. And
Did not know that.
and I said, well, it's just the same thing I knew, but it's coming from a different source. And so we had a discussion about that. He says, know this, we serve the same creator. I said, do you? He says, yes, we do. I said, what about Jesus Christ? He says, Jesus Christ is the savior for humankind, not our people. I said, oh, really? Do you have a savior for your people? That's not for you to know at this time. I get a lot of that. And we went on, the conversation went on. I says, you know, what would you have me do? What's the problem? He says, we need a scribe. We need somebody to tell our stories. We need to make contact with humankind. I said, why is it so urgent now? He says, because for the first time in the history of mankind, he has the power to destroy the world without firing a shot from his big guns. That's really, how is he doing that? Thinking global warming or something like that, which is, you know, yeah, global warming's happening. It's been happening where I'm sitting right now. 15,000 years ago was a sheet of ice 2 miles thick. It's gone now. Okay, so has the world warmed up? Yes, obviously it has. Is it because of mankind? Well, I don't know of any power plants that were running 15,000 years ago. And there were no SUVs, but still it happened. Okay. It happens because of sunspot activity. That's what controls our weather. Okay. And I thought this is maybe, you know, there was something about this. He says, humans are destroying the capital predators in the ocean. You must realize cutting trees does not affect your oxygen supply. And look at it logically. If you cut trees, what happens? Brush grows, grass grows, trees grow back. They all photosynthesize in exactly the same way. So there's no net loss in oxygen whatsoever. Okay. Plus, only 20% of our oxygen comes from land. 80% of it comes from the oceans. And he says, this is where the problem lies. Man is destroying the capital predators. Today, scientists say that if they stop fishing the major tunas, the bluefin and the great tunas, that they don't know if they could survive. They're depleted that badly. We are killing sharks for nothing more than their fins. Okay, and just the rest of it left to rot. If you take a biome that's being naturally controlled, and how is it naturally controlled? The populations are controlled by the predators, and the capital predators are the top: the grizzly bear on land, the shark, the big tunas, the marlin, those type of fish. They're what control the populations of the minor species in the ocean. You remove those, the minor species explode in population. They eat themselves out of house and home. And if you do that in the ocean, you destroy the ability to photosynthesize, and we lose 80% of our oxygen.
So we're pretty much focused on the wrong things as people.
We're focused on politics and not on facts.
Yeah.
Okay?
Amen, brother.
Yeah. So that was that conversation that went on for quite some time that day. By the time I left, I was a pretty tired puppy because it's enervating. It takes a lot of energy to be in his presence for long. He's just so energetic, so powerful. And I went back, and that's when I started. Prior to that time, I had written one book, Ghosts of Ruby Ridge, a novel with Sasquatch in it. Great story. I love it. Still one of my favorite stories ever told. But that was all I'd written. I finished that book and took 7 years to get it published. And I tell people, how long will you hold on to your dream? Because my goal for that book was to see it in print. I didn't care if it sold 3 copies. I wanted to see it in print. You know what? It's still in print today.
Wow.
Okay.
That's amazing, Thom.
And why? Because I stuck to it. I kept at it. I kept at it. I kept at it till I found a publisher who would publish it. Now they come to me. Okay. So from that day on, from the 25th of September forward, I've written 14 other books. Okay. One in my first half of my life and 14 cents. Because he keeps prodding me. Tell this story. Tell this story. Wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning with what I should talk about. And I said, can't you wake me up at 9? He says, you aren't bothered at this time. I says, hey, I'm retired. I'm not bothered at 9 either.
Oh my goodness. Before we go on, let people know where they can find your books, please.
My books are available on my website, thomcantrall.com. And they're also available on Amazon. But if you order them direct from me, you get them signed, and I get to sign them. That's one of the perks of writing a book is you get to sign it. That's why I don't like Kindle so much. People get really upset at you if you sign the face of their Kindle.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
I say that, and that's how all of my books on Kindle. So, yeah. But yeah, that's where you can get them. If you're just starting in, I would recommend Sasquatch Face to Face. That's 32 face-to-face encounters of Sasquatch by people all across North America, and they've all been vetted. There's even one in there by a former federal agent who had a face-to-face. I mean, this fellow You did not even mention mind speak to him whatsoever until he was with Arla in Oklahoma, walking down a ridge, and all of a sudden he stops. He says, "They told me to step away from you." Well, she said, "Well, do it." He stepped away, and they said, "Why do you have a gun in your pocket?" He says, "Well, I'm a federal agent." He says, I'm required to be armed at all times." He says, "It's not for you. It's just for self-protection. I would never use it on you." Okay. And they proceeded to give him the best show ever seen by Sasquatch.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And the man's name is Rick Taylor. You might know him. He'd be a great one for you to interview on here too. He lives down Texas, and great guy, great guy. But
I'll write
that's
his name down right now, Tom.
all right. Um, he, my teacher, has helped me in so many things. He's he saved my life more than once. Uh, I think did we talk about
No.
the heart treatment that I got?
I do in the tent,
Yeah,
where you can feel the vibrations and the
yeah,
hands on the.
yeah,
That was one of them.
yeah. That was one of them, but there's been others as well. Uh, Back in Georgia, and this one I don't think we talked about yet.
No.
When I went to Georgia, we used to go there every year. Arla's laid back camp out, and we had more fun there.
Mm.
That's where we were when we were sitting around a campfire. 18 of us sitting around a campfire. Two of them joined us at the campfire. They came and stood right behind me at the campfire, and 18 people saw them. I'm looking; they're behind me, and I'm looking across, and the lady across had never seen one. And all of a sudden, I see her bottom lip start, and she's pointing. And I look back over my head like that, and there's two of them standing right there. And
Wow.
they turned and went back in the brush. Arla, Keith Bearden, another person you would be a good interview. Um, uh, who else? Oh, Jonathan uh, and little Zach Henson. He was like 8 years old at the time. They got up and they followed him when they left. And there was a third one back in the brush a ways, and they saw that one too. All three of them together back there. And they came back, and Zach says, "This was when Finding Bigfoot was popular." And he says, his big grin. I mean, it was ear to ear grin. He says, "I've seen more Sasquatch in one weekend than they've seen in 3 years." And he's right. He had.
You know,
And,
Tom, I've heard of people being a chick magnet. I think you're a Sasquatch magnet.
well, they kind of come to see me now. They when I show up, they all know me. Well, one of them knows they all know, so they all know me, and so they kind of come to see what, especially the kids. They come to see what I'm doing. But this on Bob Gimlin back there with me in 2016, and the they had a cabin for us because both of us are too old to sleep in tents anymore. But they had rented a cabin for us, and a little 2 bedroom thing, and it was nice. It really was. But I was about to undergo shoulder surgery. This was in October, and I was scheduled for shoulder surgery at the end of November. Uh, my right shoulder, the rotator cuff was totally gone, and the left shoulder was bad, but I couldn't use my right shoulder at all, so I was overusing my left shoulder, which made it even worse. And I was in so much pain. It was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a solid 8 with gust of about 14.
Mm.
And you can imagine when I pinched those nerves in there, what it was like. And one night I'm laying in bed and I've got a sliding glass window and a little balcony outside. And this cabin is one of those where you walk in at ground level in front and it's 15 feet to the ground on the backside. Well, that's what this was. That balcony was up off the ground, a level and a half, a floor and a half. And all of a sudden I heard something hit the window. And I looked, well, maybe tree limb fell or something. Nothing there. So I was still getting ready for bed. At that time, I still was using my CPAP machine and such. So I had a lot to do before I could go to bed. And clang, and something else hit the window. And I saw at that time it was a pine cone. And then another one, bang, hit the window. Pine cones went through, and it wasn't a squirrel dropping them; they were coming up from below. And
Wow.
so I said, "Okay, guys, what are you up to now?" And they said, "Just go to bed. Just go to bed." Okay. So I figured they had something in mind, but I didn't figure what they had in mind. That night, they worked on my shoulders on the pain. I was able to go all the next day until late in the day before pain started coming back. That night, they were back again. Then they did it. Then the next day was even better. And then the next night, they were back again. That third night, I was asleep or thought I was asleep, and I could see him. It appeared to me, now this may sound crazy to you, but it's what I saw. Okay. I thought I was in some type of a ship, and I could see a console. Now, when I was in the Navy, I was on submarine, Polaris missile. I was a missile technician. I spent time in the Missile Control Center, and our launch console, it looked just like that, lights and buttons and all that sort of stuff. I don't think I was supposed to see that. But after that night, I never had any more pain in those shoulders. Either one. I didn't even feel pain from the surgery when they've replaced this shoulder.
Wow.
And no pain afterwards whatsoever in either shoulder. And that's been since, it's been what, 8 years.
You were saying with your heart that when you went back for the follow up to your doctor, that
Mm-hmm.
your heart was in better condition.
That's what he said. If I didn't know your heart was an atrial fibrillation, I would swear it was working normally. I can hear the fibrillation, but it's beating strongly, and your blood flow is everything it should be.
That's
I've
twice.
never seen that happen before, and this is a cardiologist, so
Well,
I have
welcome
to
to my
accept his word.
world, doctor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You want to see your associate? He's a bit hairy.
Yeah, say
So I
so.
wrote about that in After Armageddon. I talked about their medical acumen in that. Again, that's a novel. The storyline is a novel, but the information in there about Sasquatch is all totally true. And I do that because that's very critical information, and the the jerks would have a heyday with it. But this way, they can't do a thing about it. Hey, that's a novel. I can write what I want, right?
This is very true.
But you and the
Very
people to whom
smart.
it matter know that that's true.
So your relationship with him went throughout the years.
It's still going on today. I got to tell you a funny one. I have a beautiful set of paintings that's hanging in the hallway right outside my apartment. One of them is a very large painting of him, of Akinesia, looking in through my window. And that was done by a very good friend of mine, Penny. And around it are three smaller ones done by Dennis Day down in Oregon of just Sasquatch individuals. And they hung, that one hung there, the largest one hung there by itself for 3 or 4 months while I was getting stuff together, getting the frames made for the others. And finally got them all put together. And my friend Will was up. We hung them. He hung them. I sat and pointed where I wanted them. I'm really good at that. Uh, and about a week and a half later, in the middle of the night, I hear bang. That sounded like a picture fell. So I got up the next morning and went out, and sure enough, the big picture's laying sitting right down on the floor. And I said, "Wow, I wonder how that happened." So I waited till Will come back, and I'm gonna rehang it. I was gonna double up, put a heavy duty hanger on it. I use these sticky hangers that you put on the wall and they stick. Those things don't come off, and they're very high pressure plastic. Yeah, and I had no idea. I thought maybe we just didn't get it all under high tide or something. But when I looked at it, it had been ripped in half, and that plastic is that thick. It's heavy duty stuff, and I haven't. And then I thought, foul play. And I was telling, I was at dinner, and I was telling my table mates at dinner what went on, and started to, say I suspected foul play. His voice, Tom, that was me. I got excited when I saw it. I heard about it, and I had to come see it. And I got excited about it, and I pulled it down and dropped it. Okay. So we just hung it back up. It's been fine since. But yeah.
So they've taught you so much. What has been the most, probably the hardest lesson you've ever learned from the teacher?
To
Sorry.
accept the negative without reacting to it. Respect in all things, which wasn't that difficult for me. I've always been a respectful person. But to accept attacks from people who know no better and not react to it. You know what? I found that drives them crazy. If they don't have anybody to argue, if you don't argue with them, they don't have anybody to argue with. When I appeared on, yeah, when I appeared on Coast to Coast AM a few weeks back, I have had probably 200 emails from people, thanking me for being on and enjoyed the show type thing. Very nice. And I've had 3 negatives. And the funny part of it is all 3 of them in the same vein. Well, where's your pictures? Why don't you have pictures? As if they mean anything, especially in today's situation. I said, they make better pictures than I can take. And I used to be a professional photographer.
With AI doing the pictures,
that's right.
Be hard.
That's right. They can make stuff better than I can possibly take. And if it is good, what are they going to say? Oh, that's AI. So you're in a no-win situation with pictures. So I just don't share them. Besides, they're true. They were given to me. Okay, there's respect in that. I was in their home. I don't even take a picture of the scenery when I'm in their home without their permission. I always tell them I want to take some pictures, not for them, but if you want to be in them, that's fine. I'd love that. But no, you don't have to be. I just want to take pictures of the scenery. And I always ask them first. That's respect. That's pure respect. But having to deal with these people and not react to them was probably the biggest lesson I had to learn. That, and the hardest part of service is allowing yourself to be served. Okay. I went to a conference in Honolulu, Oklahoma. We had a cabin that we stayed in, a bunch of us, and there were like 6 people in the cabin and 20 people camped around the outside of it. Just a wonderful time. The people who organized that, Arla and her friend, were both, they're Indian ladies,
Mhm.
and in that culture, the senior person is served first and is served. Well, that was tough to get used to. It really was. I'm used to doing for myself. That's the hardest part of the condition I'm in now is allowing others to serve me. It's so tough not being
Yeah.
able to do for myself. And, it's just, that was so strange to sit there and let them bring me a plate with everything on it. And yeah, that's difficult. That's difficult.
But you still get out and
I
do.
still get out, but I can't camp overnight. Uh, I went to Canada in September. Went back to our research area up there with my pards, Brian Bland, and then Sue, and a group of people there. It was a wonderful time. But I camped there and ended up coming home with bronchial pneumonia. Uh, and oh, what a trip that was! I'd had to come home early. The person who had driven me, I didn't want them to have to leave early. So there was a good friend, coming back early, and I arranged to ride with him. We just left camp, and he had to stop and sleep a while. So I'm sitting there waiting for him. We get about 10 miles down the road, and he's so drunk he can't see. Fortunately, Trans Canada Highway 1 was bumper to bumper and moving at about 4 miles an hour. That's the only way I could keep him on the road. We got to the border, and he said, I can't go any further. And I gave up my driver's license in like 2008. And so I ended up driving from there all the way home.
Wow.
Yeah. And you think that wasn't a little different? It was fun, but it was a little different.
Now Highway 1 in Canada, isn't there like a lot of people go missing? Not that that's Bigfoot related, but isn't that the highway they just talk about?
I don't know. I haven't heard that about it. It's a major it's the major transcontinental highway in Canada. It goes from Vancouver all the way to the East Coast. Um, and it's a major highway. You just have to
So
learn to be able to talk in kilometers instead of miles.
I'd be messed up. So you made it home okay, but you had
Yeah, I'm
pneumonia.
home okay. But and I had help. I had somebody watching over my shoulder when I was doing it. I know that. But yeah, I says, well, let me drive us into town. We were near. We weren't even to the first town inside Washington yet, and so I got into town and I was doing all right. I'd figured out how to use the brakes when you have feet that don't have any feeling in them,
Oh,
and so I just kept on going. Got home, but by that time he'd sobered up enough to get a motel room. He was planning on staying where I live anyway that night.
wow.
So yeah, that was quite a night. They we got through it all right though, but it's just one thing after another. I get these warnings all the time, um, and we have so many wonderful people that I've met through this. I got to tell you one that's super special, and her name is Lee. Um, and Lee's an author. She's a naturalist. She's written a book on whales and another on owls. Both of them are absolutely excellent. And she will tell you that she's heard talk from dolphins, and one spoke to her, and in Hawaii, and she's now writing a book on Sasquatch. But she's doing it differently. She's not like me. She doesn't do her own editing and stuff. she has a commercial publisher, and so they have some control over what she writes, and they don't want any statement of woo in it at all. So what she's doing, she's taking the things that happen that I've written about in my book and gone to the university, got the law, the rule behind it, and then writing about it from that angle.
Wow.
So basically, her work is verifying what I've done, and it's going to be fantastic. I had lunch with her on this last Friday. Her and Barb Shoup and I had lunch. We ended up sitting there for 3.5, 4 hours, just having a wonderful time and talking back and forth. We tend to do that, and we've decided we're going to have an authors uh, retreat here sometime within the next month or so, and go up and find a place in the woods and where there's a motel close by, and spend some time in the woods and writing and everything. That'll be good. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, she was having a little trouble getting focused because she'd listened so much to what her publisher wanted that and she already had everything in mind what she wanted to do. And I told her, write what you want. If they want to change the order of it, that's fine. They can do that. But you write what you want to say. You know, and if they won't publish it, I will. So it's no big deal to me. Uh, so yeah, that's what we went with that. And but she's just fantastic in what she does. Fantastic, just great. And of course, Barb is out of this world. And we've got some new things going on that they're finding that have us absolutely amazed now. We don't know what they are for sure. They look like fairies. We've got good video on them and good captures on the video. And they're so fast, it's unreal. We clocked it on the video, measured the distance. It's between 120 and 160 feet. So I just
Hmm.
used the minimum, 120 feet, and it traversed it in 0.4 seconds. That's 205 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And so we're we're caught up in that right up to here right now.
Well,
uh,
well, I imagine that's pretty amazing. You spent all this year, with the Sasquatch, and you kind of have another door open for you now, which may be related. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know, but you strike me as someone that you don't like for your mind to be still a lot. You like to get in,
yeah,
figure things out, and get your hands on it.
yeah. This is more for them to work with. I'm just kind of sitting back and observing it and offering advice as I can and asking lots of questions. Okay. Did I tell you? I don't know if we've talked about the time that my teacher came to me when I was still in medical rehab after my pneumonia 5 years ago. Oh, I have a little walker, a hand walker that I used at that time, and the walker has a basket under the seat. You open the seat, and that's where I put my oxygen bottle when I was out and about, and I had the cannula on my nose. At night, I'd take that off and put my CPAP machine on to sleep with. Well, when I did, I'd sit down on the side of my bed, open the seat, take off the oxygen cannula, put it in there, and then put my CPAP on, go to bed. Get up the next morning, I'd take the CPAP off, put the oxygen back on. My hairbrush was in there too, and I'd brush my hair before I got stood up. Well, I went to bed on Friday night. Door was locked inside a locked facility. Went to bed on Friday night, followed the routine. Got up the next morning, sat on the side of the bed, took my oxygen off, reached in my basket to grab my uh, oxygen cannula and my hairbrush, and that is sitting in the top of my basket.
That is what I wanted to get to tonight. That. And that's a golden eagle
That's a golden
feather.
eagle feather. There are two nesting pairs of golden eagles in the county where I live, and I have one of their primary wing feathers. He said, "This is a symbol to you of being our scribe." So isn't that special?
That is special. That's an honor.
Hmm. My sister asked me one time, she's 7 years older than I am, "Why do you spend so much time doing that?" I said, "Diane, let me explain it this way. I have had a being that 90% of the world doesn't even believe exists hold my hand. What would that be worth to you?"
Everything.
Yeah. She just, and has never mentioned it again.
You said
Huh?
your family was pretty harsh on you because you believed. Has
Right.
anything about that changed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My daughter believes wholeheartedly. She's seen enough now, but she was too young when I started to do. But now I don't care anymore. They can do what they want to. I know what I know, and
When you know,
that's
you
all
know.
I got. Yeah, yeah. They
Well, so where are you at now? What is your next? Your journey's been so long, and it's
right now I'm helping 3 people write their books,
wow.
and it's just, and that's what I'm helping Barb write a book, uh, and a lady back in Texas, and Arla, and then I'm just being an advisor to Lee on hers. She's that's why she wanted lunch Friday. She says, "I got questions." So and there again, her questions was, "What about glyphs?" I
We
said,
were going
"You
to hit on that. We were going to hit on that. That's one of the things you.
okay?" In 2012, Brian, Sue, and I started a study up in BC and near Brian's home. And a mutual friend of ours, Randy Brisson, told us, he's the one that clued us in on it. They make these. And I wish I could show pictures because I have in our 5 year study, the 5 years we conducted this study, we had over 25,000 pictures of glyphs.
Mm,
Okay. I lost um, a hard drive, a computer, and lost 19,000 pictures.
oh my goodness.
Yeah. Fortunately, Brian had them
Oh,
all. Brian had them all too, so I didn't lose them entirely. But
oh, you scared me,
of the
Tom.
of those 25,000 pictures, I only share less than 100 of them. Why? Because those I share, I'm 99.9% sure that they're Sasquatch made. The others, I'm somewhere between there and 50% sure. Okay,
What's the
but
purpose?
hmm,
What's the
so
purpose?
it's a written language. Same thing as the Icelandic runes. Exactly the same thing. Don't we use runes? What's our alphabet?
Yeah,
It's
that's a good point.
symbols. It's symbols to that we use to create communication. That's the same thing. A little more rudimentary in ways, but that's what it is. And everybody, well, what does it mean? Unless it's for you, you don't have any right to know what it means. You're reading somebody else's mail. Okay, if it is for you, you'll know immediately on looking at it what it means. But there are classes of them too. There's the personal identification glyph, and mine it looks like kind of like a K, and they devised that for me. I started out with a T with a slanted roof. That's how I made it. They didn't like that, So they put two to the side.
Oh,
and then
okay.
and then they moved it down like that. So it's, read from my finger to the left there. And
Yes,
yeah, so that's me. Um, each of the people in the clan up there that we know and deal with have their own signature. We know who we're dealing with by that, uh, because we spent 5 years doing it. Okay, we know Rajase, we know Forshna, we know Arishna, and just by their signatures. And then there's things like directional glyphs, and I've got one on my wall here. It looks just like an arrow. If I can get my finger in there, it looks like an arrow, except that it means go that way. Yeah, the way it points to the direction of your finger rather than the point of the arrow. It's backwards.
oh,
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when they point, they'll point like that with three fingers. And their thumb's a little different than ours. It isn't set offset like ours is. It's more in line with their fingers, so it comes across a little differently. But you know, we've gotten up in the morning and had a rock ring with sticks in it, like our fire, right outside the tent.
well,
Yeah, they come in and do it at night. They use a lot of in that area. They use a lot of sword fern with their glyphs and with their structures. That's a dead giveaway. Look at the sword fern. If it's cut, it's human made. If it's picked, it's them. And if you don't believe it, try to pick a sword fern.
hmm.
I've done that several times with people. Well, anybody can do that. Okay, go pick me one. And those things are tough. I mean, you got that big long fern on one little stem that's that big around, and that has to hold it up in all kinds of weather. So it is tough, and you aren't going to pick it. And
So moving into the structures,
mm-hmm.
um, they can they use those ferns to keep them waterproof. What was the most amazing thing you found out about a structure that they?
Most of the structures that I see are what we'd call a creche. They're a place to keep the baby while they're picking food. Okay.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. For baby safe. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Um, yeah, Olympic Project has some beautiful what they call nests in the huckleberries, and that's exactly what they are. They don't realize that, but that's exactly what they are. It's a place to put baby while they're picking huckleberries, and
Wow. So they put
yeah,
them in the middle of the huckleberry.
yeah, right with them. Hmm.
Wow.
And yeah, that's probably the most. Now they do have other symbols that they use. I've seen great, big, huge um, asterisk, and that's a sign of power. That's a energy source. Uh, they use altars. They have altars they make. Um, I told you about the one when I met that I made. Well, they make them too, and I've got some beautiful pictures of them. There's one of them. They discontinued it now. They moved it, but it had probably 100 sticks pushed into the ground around it, and this is on fourth floor. Okay, I can't push a stick through that done, but they do right on down. And there were probably 100 of them around this structure, a big asterisk on the side of a red stump. I'll send you a picture of it after
Oh, I
so
would
you
love
can
to
see it.
see that. What does the Capitol? I seen structure. It was just in a few feet in the woods, but it was on the road. Almost no one that goes on, but it was a capital A, like that,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
prominent, like you couldn't miss it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no way that but it was when you look at it, it couldn't fall like that. I mean, it couldn't. I was like,
No. It's boggles the mind. Sue was a great help in our work with this because she was a very logical person, and Brian and I'd get all excited over something, and she'd say, "Okay, I understand they make these, but what makes you think they made this one?" So then I'd have to go back and find more evidence, and
Yeah.
it's that other evidence that counts. Structures. There's a lot in our area there. There were a lot of cedar stumps this was logged back in the 1930s into the war years, and of course cedar rots so slowly it's unreal, and so they're still solid on the outside, but the middle's rotted out, and they use those a lot. They put a roof over them, and then put
Wow.
ferns on the ground, and use that for their crash. And we've got lots of those up there, and it's just fantastic to deal with them. That's how we got to know everybody up there, know all of the clan, and yeah, it's unbelievable. Um, Again, like I say, the glyphs, if they're for you, you'll know them immediately. You'll know what they mean immediately. It just pops right into your mind. It's no problem at all. If they're not, um, you're reading somebody else's mail. You don't know the context. And you take the word BOW. What does that mean? It can be a
BOW.
ribbon. It can be
Yeah.
a ribbon in your hair. It could be a bend at the waist. It could be the front end of a ship, or it can be something to launch an arrow with. Unless you know the context, you don't know anything, right? Same thing with those. If you don't know the context, you have no idea what they're doing. There's some that are pretty common. The X, okay,
Hmm.
friendship, welcome. Almost always friendship, welcome. Uh, yeah, we find those by the ton up there and
What
everywhere
does
else.
what does a U in the ground mean when you know
Pardon
it was
me?
done? What would a capital U shape in the ground be when you know it was not man-made? I mean, it was in the entrance of. We actually had a sighting that day, but didn't know it. We got it on video.
I don't know. I don't know. Again, it's not for me, so I wouldn't know. It's not one I'm familiar with here. I haven't seen that one.
It's like a
You, I've,
capital U. It was weird. I've never seen. It was not there when we went out, but we took a break,
mm,
went back in, and like,
that
wow.
happens a lot. That happens a lot. Brian one day was feeling kind of down. He took a walk. This is when he was married before several years ago, and he was took a walk just to kind of get by himself a while. And he was, if you're here today, would you leave me some kind of a sign? So and he's walking up the trail, and here's a big um, chunk of granite, and on top of it is a small piece of granite, and there's two sticks laying right up on that big piece of granite right next to the small one. It's hard to do this when you're looking at your fingers and it's going backwards the wrong directions. Okay, he took a picture of it and he walked on up the where he was going, turned around, coming back. There'd been nobody by. When he got back there, it had been moved. One stick was laying down, almost down. The other one had been moved. The little rock on top had been moved, rotated a bit. And then he looked at it. Oh, well, just the wind blew the sticks down, right? Except there was a stick that wasn't there when he
Hmm.
went up that was holding the one up. So they had come in and changed it just to
And
let
you
him know.
notice those things just enough where you
Yeah.
can like someone said, well, you didn't see it, but
Uh huh.
you
Yeah.
know, that's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. It's an absolutely wonderful thing to do. Don't get too hung up on those. Just notice them, enjoy them, and usually leave them be. Okay. There's been a couple that they've asked us to take down for them. One was an altar that people started moving into that area, and they were concerned they would find it. And this was so unique. I'll send you a picture of this one too. because it was an asterisk, and it was right on the ground. There is like a green carpet of moss. There's no underbrush. That's why it makes such a great study area, because you can see what's there. And we found this thing, Brian, Sue, and I, and Randy. And when we found it, we wondered about it. But they said, please demolish this for us. It's too sacred to us to do, and it needs to be removed. And what it was, the bottom stick of the asterisk was totally covered with moss. The middle stick was about half covered with moss, and the top stick had very little moss on it at all. Like they'd been put down 5 years apart, okay?
Wow.
And there was a trackway right across the top of it, very fresh 16-inch tracks with a 51-inch spacing. Okay, wasn't any problems figuring out who did it. Also, there were sword ferns all around it, stacked up there. What that is, it's where they did the ceremony to create their elders. It's a transition from the old to the new. Very sacred to them. Oh, and the middle, the three pieces where they crossed, was tied by a split maple width. It's tied. And I have that width right here in my bookcase right now. I was able to keep that. Yeah.
Awesome. We're going on hours, and I know your time is very important. One question I do want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
With the way we are populating our areas, and we're just encroaching on their habitat, that can't be good for them. What do you think's going to happen?
We don't encroach on their habitat much. They keep their population very low on purpose.
Okay.
Okay. And they can live right among us. There's a park, town of Puyallup here next to Tacoma. There's a park on the edge of Puyallup. That's one of the ways you know how, if you're from Washington, if you can pronounce Puyallup.
Yeah, I'm not from Washington, North Carolina here. I was like, Puyallup, darling, Puyallup.
At any rate, in that park, it's about 300 acres of just woods. They live in there just fine, with the city all around them. Wow. But there's traces, where they can get out and back without being seen. Okay, so no, it doesn't bother them. They're, even if they had to move back 20 miles, we've got so much national forest land, especially here in the West. I mean, Idaho's 2/3 public land. Washington's 1/3.
Well, Maine's very, that's all mostly state owned, or no, yeah. Maine is privately owned by everyone, right?
Yeah, wow. There's national forests here and there and everywhere, except for Texas. Not many. But, it's just so much public land that they aren't threatened. They can live right next to us, and we not even know it until they want us to. The one thing you have to do, and I was asked this today, just earlier today, you've got to lose fear. Fear is a detriment. It is so detrimental to your cause. They cannot work through fear. And there's nothing to fear from them. Be respectful, and there is nothing to fear whatsoever from any of them. Okay. It's just a matter of respect. Now, if you do like the Eighth Canyon people did, I shot him 16 times. Yeah, he got mad. I wonder why. Yeah. The first thing they did when they saw him was start shooting at him.
We have a tendency to destroy what we don't understand. We have a tendency to destroy what we say we're going to protect, too.
That's right. That's right. The worst thing we could do to them was put them under government
Thank you. Yes.
control.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
agree 100%.
Yeah, our record with indigenous people is not that great. Okay.
Hmm.
And yeah, can you imagine that? First of all, they're not going to listen to them to start with. So what's going to happen there? Yeah.
That wouldn't be a good day.
Yeah.
But I just think some things. I go out for curiosity and the friendships and looking
That's
for
what it's all about. Go out with curiosity and friendship, with peace and love in your heart, and you'll have the most fantastic experiences you ever thought possible. Uh, I, I wouldn't trade my life for anybody's. You know, I might trade bodies right now, but I wouldn't trade my life. Yeah.
So
It.
we go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Um, I really feel like there's so much I want to ask, and I know we'll continue to do these shows, but I really would love to get you and Arla and Barb just on just a three-way where you guys can just
Oh,
have
anytime.
your own show, and I just let me sit in the background and enjoy it. But once again, I'm going to give you the screen again, and I want you to do a tribute to your next person. You ready for
Oh,
that,
well, I think I did earlier.
Arla?
No, to Lee, I think I
Lee.
did. See, Lee, she was sent to me because of somebody that knew something about Sasquatch. She wanted to write about Sasquatch. Well, we have since become such good friends. I introduced her to Barb, and I've never seen Barb take to anybody like she did Lee. We went to lunch, and in 5 minutes' time, Barb's sharing me videos with her. They're talking up a storm, and they're best buds now too. And
Well,
Lee
Tom, I
is
hate to break it to you. You're going to have to give it. You're going to have to start all over with it with your tribute. We want to make sure we get it done right.
okay. Let's see.
You're,
There's somebody else too that has this. Has this? Oh, Bob Gimlin. Yes,
okay, let's go with
because
Bob. I'm going to give you the.
Bob has suffered. His family has suffered
Well, I tell
because
you
of
what.
idiots.
Yeah, and I think I know one of them. Yeah, we'll talk
Hmm.
about that some other. Yeah, no,
Bob is probably the most genuine man I have ever known in my life. He's 100% cowboy, I guarantee you, in the best meaning of that term. The guy was a rough stock rider. That's how he met Roger, riding rough stock rodeos. He gave it up because he had kids and it's not quite conducive, but he was still breaking training horses at 88 years old. Okay, if I had a wreck on a mule, and his wife told him that one more cold on this place to break, you're going to have to find yourself a new home. I told him probably not
oh,
a whole new number, but it would be in care of the doghouse. But Bob was probably my best male friend in the entire world. Um, we're a lot alike in so many ways. But you know what people have done to him and said to him 150 years ago would have got him shot. You didn't call a cowboy a liar. His words is bond. Okay, you called the 150 years ago. You call a cowboy a liar, you're going to get shot. That's all there was to it. And Bob's that way, but now he just ignores the fools.
yeah.
But he is such a genuine man and has done so much from 1967. See, Bob, prior to the time that being stood up from behind that root log, that log root, he had never even seen a track he could call real. Bob went along because he liked to ride. Okay, he loved to ride his horses. He rode the Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada alone.
Wow.
Okay, and yeah, and so that's why he went along with Roger because he had the gear to get the horses. When they went to to Bluff Creek, went to Northern California. They took his little truck, 1-ton Chevy truck with stock racks on it, 3 horses, and went down there. His Roger's brother-in-law was going to pay for the gas and never did. When they came around that root wad and that girl stood up, that was the first time he had ever seen anything that he could classify as Sasquatch.
Wow.
And he, where she turns back, Bob, when the horses just went ballistic, as you can imagine, when they saw that, Roger's little pony took off, and he was trying to get the camera out of the saddlebags, and the horse was down, and it was a real rodeo. And the pack horse started bucking, and Bob said it was all he could do to keep his horse from bucking him off. He just turned the pack horse loose. They figured they'd catch them later. They weren't going that far. And usually when you do that, they just go down around the first curve and stop, find something to eat, wait for you. But and one of those horses, believe it or not, belonged to Bob Hieronymus. They'd borrowed him from Hieronymus. And Roger followed Patty, and Bob followed across the creek, still on horseback. And when he stepped down off his horse and pulled the rifle out of the scabbard, he said, and he'll tell you, he said it was not to shoot anything. It was just in case something went sideways, so that they'd have protection. But that was the turn back phase. That's where she turned and looked back. She turned and looked back at him. And then went on. When they got out of sight, Roger ran out of film, and he came walking back, and Bob said, "Did you get something good?" He said, "I don't know if I got anything." He said, "I fell down the creek." He says, I don't know if I even got anything on it. He said, "But I ran out of film, and I was shaking, and and I imagine he was shaking a bit." And it wasn't until they got back that they were able to figure out what they had on the film. But he said when he was invited to come over and see the film, he said, "I didn't think that was so great. He said, I saw it better than that myself." But they just attacked his family. The people in in Yakima area, just attacked his family fiercely. It was terrible. His wife worked at the bank, and she had to tell him, "You can't do anything about this anymore because they're going to fire me." And so he didn't, and he stayed away from it from 1972 when Roger died until 2003. They were having a reunion down in Bluff Creek area, and he went down for that and was just received with open arms. And so
So they were angry with him for catching it on film or going public with the film.
There's it's all a hoax. These things don't the same crap we get now, But they had more. There were fewer believers then, fewer and practically no knowers. But they within the next weeks there were people that came in and investigated that site. Again, Ivan T. Sanderson returned there and investigated that site. Took castings of the tracks in the sand there. As a matter of fact, I have one here on my bookcase of her tracks, and so he survived it. He's 92 years old now, and he's like me. He doesn't get around as well anymore. But at the end of October, they had him and I together over in Yakima at the conference there, and the meet and greet. We got to sit together and talk to people, and visit together. We don't get together like we used to when I lived in Tri-Cities, and him in Yakima. We used to get together for lunch once or twice a month, but we can't do that anymore. We've got a mountain range between us. And but yeah, he's one of my favorite people in the entire world.
Tom, maybe if you would like, um, we'll have you back one day where you can just talk about your friendship with him because I think that deserves
Oh,
it.
yeah, I don't know if I want to make much of that public. We
That's
just
fine.
had we just had so much fun together, and oh, geez, we'd been in the woods together. He'd come up to Barb's camps and show people around there, show what to look for. Yeah, just have a ball. Just have a ball. This, yeah, yeah,
How
for
often do
sure.
you get to talk to him now?
I talk to him fairly regularly because I call him on the phone or he calls me. But but I haven't seen him since October, and I won't be able to until the snow's off and the pass is open again. We drive across the pass again. Uh, but yeah, and, yeah, that's the trouble with living where they got mountains. Got one
Well,
right. Got us one house right outside our bedroom window here. It's about 14,400 feet tall. So
wow. I bet that is beautiful.
sure was this morning with the sun coming up for bright and clear, and it's shining in the sun. Oh yeah, it was gorgeous. Might not be so gorgeous when it starts erupting again.
Oh,
Uh, I was in
yeah.
St. Helens when she erupted.
I did not
Um,
know that.
yeah, yeah. I lived about 30 miles from the mouth of her.
You
I could sit
told
and
me.
watch. I could sit and watch the eruption going on. Most
You
fantastic
told you
natural thing
told
I've
me
ever
about
seen.
that. Yeah. Wow. But
Yeah.
you said they left the area. The squash had left the area before that
Oh
happened.
yeah, they did. Yeah, they were good. I mean, that mountain was swelling out at inches a day on the north side. The only people that didn't know it was about to erupt were the government. Uh,
Okay.
so,
That's usually where it goes, isn't it?
oh, they were surprised when they did analysis of it. There was the same soil chemicals as the native soil here. Like, duh, where do they think the native soil came from? Yeah, the government entities just blow my mind with their stupidity. They built a dirt dam across the Toutle River. Just and the first storm, of course, washed out the middle of it. And here's this engineer standing there. Well, it wasn't that it was a failure; it just wasn't as successful as we wanted it to be. And here's the whole freaking river running right down through the hole in the middle of it. Yeah,
Wow,
that's government.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's why a lot of people lose their lives too, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It is. Uh,
Oh yeah. I
I
worked
can
with
tell you a story about that. We had a
go ahead.
fire here 3 or 4 years ago, big one over in the Indiad area on the Columbia River, and 4 kids got trapped. Young firefighters. They called for water drops, and they're right on the impoundments on the Columbia River. The government wouldn't let them dip water out of the impoundment because there's an endangered fish that lives in there. 4 young people died.
Oh my god. How does
Whoever
that
made
make
that order
sense?
should have been shot.
Oh, they should have they should be sitting in federal prison.
Yep, yep.
No, not federal prison. Let's just say the real stuff, the state level prison.
Yeah,
It's somebody
yeah,
named Bubba that
yeah.
wants to smooch
Bubba could be
with
their
them.
cellmate. Yeah,
That's right. Go take care of
yeah,
them, Bubba. Here's a bar soap.
yeah. You like my shirt?
I love that. I was looking at that earlier. I love that.
That
Where'd you
was
get
one I
that one?
designed for my group many years ago. And
I love that.
yeah,
Do you sell those?
I used to. I don't anymore because it's just too hard to
They don't.
manipulate. If you want to make one, I can send you the graphic and you can have it made on a shirt. I can do that certainly easily enough. Anybody that would want that, I could do that.
Well, I am
Uh,
going to be ordering the second book. The first one I ordered for my friend Tina, so I'll be ordering another one tonight. Make that
all
one
right,
out for me, please.
all right, I will do that.
All right, Tom. Well, we'll have you back, and I'll be in touch. And
You
thank you.
you have no idea how much I enjoy visiting with you on these casts. They're absolutely out of this world. And I've
Tom,
been telling about you to everybody that I know. So your following has got to be rising.
yeah, I think I'm at 100 now, so I'm like,
Cool. Yeah. All right. We can get
but
you to
I hope
110.
that's cool. I do it because I love it.
I know.
Hopefully
Me
one
too.
day, we can actually get to where we can go out of state. And we were actually looking at our flight points. We're like, do we have enough to go see Tom? My husband was actually looking.
Oh, come ahead. Come ahead.
Tom, you have been a blessing in my heart, and I thank your friendship. I thank you so
Thank you.
much for that. And I hope we'll have you again next week.
All right. I'm ready for it anytime you want to do it.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Bye, darling.
Bye.